parenting, manliness, marriage, fitness, and finance. Nothing's off limits. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Surf Turf Show. With me today, as always, is a dripping wet Adam. What you got going there, my friend?
I just got, we went snorkeling, so I just got, it went a little longer than I thought. So yes, I'm a little.
That's what a bougie intro. Like, we just spent the morning snorkeling, perhaps with some Prosecco, some champagne.
It's a hard life. Yeah. I mean, guys asked me to go and I'm like, I can't say no to this. If I say no, I'm going to regret it later. So, and it did not disappoint.
Nor should you.
It was
no, nor should you, right? I mean, why would we ever prioritize something digital over something real, right? Man, you get out there and snorkel. That's like, not once in a lifetime, but certainly like once in a quarter. That's awesome. See anything good?
Yeah. Yeah, we saw some lobster. We saw barracuda. We saw like a big monkfish, just this like big, like puffy dude. And then, just a bunch, it was cool. Like, I love just sitting there listening to the reef because it has this like clicking sound. So it's kind of cool to just float and listen to it all.
Was that the sound of the barracuda like clicking its teeth behind you, like getting ready to take a chunk out of your cap?
Yeah,
I mean, are you sure you're...
Well, I started watching him because he was like almost like stalking us. He was like kind of circling around us. I'm like, I got my eye on you.
They always seem to be a little spastic, like the ADD fish, like the fish that's just like a little unpredictable. Like you're not real sure what that guy's going to do. I don't think they're actually that dangerous, but they just got that feel about them.
Yeah. It just looked like ominous. He has like an ominous face.
He's got some big old chompers on him. Yeah. That stuff's crazy. No, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I live by the beach, but it's really more of a hangout and play in the surf sort of beach. We don't have any reefs here or anything. So snorkeling's not real high on the list. But okay, let's shift gears, right? Because we're going to get in enough tangents today, I'm sure, but let's at least try to start off getting on paper. So last week, man, I obviously talking about risk assessment. We're coming off talking on adversity. Well, how do you decide kind of how to manage adversity? Well, part of it is understanding risk and how to mitigate it. And last week we were going to start talking that, but man, you ever go into the arms room and take out a rifle, brand new rifle, either just came back from getting a new barrel on or maybe just brand new straight up, put a new sight on it, take it out to the range, lay down at 25 meters to zero and just nothing, like not even on paper, not unsure where the bullets are going. You had that experience?
It's definitely happened. I mean, you got to get somebody with a scope behind you, try to figure out what is happening. And, we got those like cool lasers now. You can like put in the bore and shoot the laser out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like before we had all those like nice toys, definitely you could be all over the place with a weapon.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like I honestly, I rarely break out the collimator, just probably lazy. You just go out there at 25, figure you'll probably be up on paper, right? I'm good enough to get on paper. Like sometimes just now. And so you got to like half it up to 10 meters. You just get up closer. You're like, all right, we're going to shorten this up and just dial her in. I feel like that was our show last week. We spit the whole thing on the zero range, just trying to get rounds on paper. We're like, okay, so we were everywhere. We went left, we went right, we went high, we hit short in the dirt. And then I think toward the end, we were really starting to get in to understand what we're talking about when we say, the kind of science and art of risk mitigation. Do we get a little closer?
Yeah. I mean, I think in our defense, like, in that article I referenced, the Preston Klein article, like he said that the Institute for Risk Analysis tried for 3 years to come up with a definition for risk, and they gave up after 3 years. They could not come up with a definition. The Institute of Risk Analysis could not come up with a definition for risk. So like, it's a very broad topic, and I think we didn't, scope it very effectively.
I haven't been a government employee for a lot of years. That sounds to me like a little bit of normal, like, well, if we make this project take 3 years, we don't have to get another project. We could just work on this one for 3 years. So I'm always a little skeptical when I hear that a government institution took
I don't know
3 years to do something.
Yeah. I don't know what the incentives were in that situation. Yeah.
I don't either. I shouldn't, maybe they're well-intentioned and I'm totally off. But yeah, and you also bump into the problem of there's a lot of jargon in this, right? So we've professionally done this for so many years that it's hard not to accidentally, I think, talk across it. And then you have to kind of drill down on it and make it more approachable. But at the same time, you want to kind of be accurate. And it's just kind of messy. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we're not just totally screwed up for being everywhere last week. But regardless, we were, right? We went all kinds of places with it.
Well,
but I think we could do better.
There's like so many different, there's so many different types of risk. And so like if you if you're talking about one, you're overlooking the other, other types.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Tea went down the wrong pipe there. And no,
Wait,
that's
you
right.
drink, hold on, just pause. You drink tea? What kind?
It's dude. So okay, here's this. So I drink coffee, but I don't drink coffee in my house. And here's the reason I don't drink coffee in my house. If I drink coffee in my house, I will drink all the coffee in my house. Like I will just suck down coffee for like 6 straight hours in the morning, and I'll have a heart murmur by the time lunch is over. So I have to like, I don't know. I have to kind of be cautious with my coffee intake. So I do my 2 cups in the morning. But if I'm just sitting here sucking down something to drink, I'll have some tea. Or I'm the same way with booze. I don't know about you, but if I keep a drink in my hand all night, like I'll drink a lot. So I have to kind of just
Is
watch that, space it out a little bit.
is it black tea, green tea?
Black tea, just normal like
Black
English
tea.
breakfast.
Okay. All right. All
A
right.
little bit of
I mean,
caffeine, a little
that
bit
makes
to keep me
sense.
moving.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just,
All
man,
right. All right.
I could
I
drink a
didn't,
lot of coffee. It doesn't go well.
yeah. No, yeah. And I'm getting so old that I'm like, I can't drink coffee after 2. I'm like, it's going to mess up my sleep.
So that's another problem. And you know what? We're already getting on tangents today, but we haven't started, so it's not a
I know.
tangent yet.
I know.
Technically,
No,
we're
not
not off target yet because we haven't gone to
technically.
the ranch. Technically. But man, as you get older, like holy hell, what happened? I used to be able to drink whatever, whenever, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I can't drink coffee after lunch, and I can't drink booze after dinner, or I won't sleep in either case. And well, if I have too much of this or too little of this, and this disagrees and that disagrees, like, when do we get so damn bitchy? Like, what happened?
I think I love sleep so much now that it's like anything that starts interfering with that, I'm like, go away thing that's interfering with sleep.
But it didn't used to interfere. I used to be able to do
Right.
anything and fall asleep and just wake up, 8 hours later, boom, ready for the day, whatever. It's I don't know. I feel like the entire aging process is really just like narrowing your tolerances for successfully functioning through the day. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like in 20 more years. I'm going to have a very, very narrow road to walk.
Yeah, that's definitely possible, but I don't know. There's something about getting a good night's sleep, like where it's like you don't have a lot of caffeine or alcohol in your system, and you just sleep and you wake up the next day. I'm like, whew, this feels good.
I agree. No, I agree. It's just like the gold standard for a day because, the next day is going to suck. If I have a shitty night's sleep, boom, next day's trashed. And so,
Yeah.
but what kind of life is it when you're really building the entire pattern of your life in order to make sure you sleep well? Like it just feels kind of weird at some point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to live, you have to like enjoy what you're doing. So,
Yeah, we could talk about aging another time, man. Man, a lot of thought goes into that. A lot of thought goes into like the art and science of managing, nutrition and supplementation and exercise and intake and outtake of things. Like I put a reasonable amount of thought into that to develop a process that works, and I think it does okay. But man, I wish it was more static and less dynamic. I feel that every couple of years you got to kind of rework the whole system because, of course, it's a dynamic system and mostly dynamic downward.
it's
Unfortunately,
you're just managing, you're managing decline.
Yep. And now we're back into parachuting analogies, right? We all want to just have a nice smooth stand-up landing at the end, right? Smooth stand-up landing. Like,
Nice two-stage
oh
flare.
man,
Boom. Okay.
absolutely, picture perfect. Okay, so risk. So the way I thought that it might be nice to bracket risk down and talk about it in a way that kind of dismisses a lot of the chaff and like kind of wickers this down to something, one, that we can clearly discuss without just hopping all over the place, but two, that I think makes it, puts it in context, is to talk in terms of parenting. So we talked a lot about goals and how risk is something that can keep you, the things that can keep you from kind of achieving your goals, like these risks, these potential things that could happen that can, cause you to veer off course or cause you to fail. And so I think if we put it in terms of parenting and just say, well, what's our goal as parents for our kids? And then we talk about the lines of effort under that goal. So the aspects of parenting, okay, we want to be physically successful. We want to be physically capable. We want it to be, smart, mentally healthy. We kind of break it down. And then we talk about the risks under each of those categories. I think we can kind of sequentially bring it to life a little bit and also help refine what we mean kind of when we talk about being a healthy parent. Because I don't think I necessarily got to wire it tight, but I think at least have a plan that unfortunately we deviate from basically every day, but a plan nonetheless. Is that, do you think that'll work?
Yes. No, that sounds good.
Okay. Well, I think broadly, at the broadest, as parents, we want our kids to be, uh, awesome humans. We want our kids to grow up to just be generally like self-sufficient, happy, healthy. So to wicker that down a little, because that's a little too broad. To wicker that down, I thought, well, what are the things I actually want my kid to succeed in life? Okay, well, I want him to be physically healthy. I want him to be mentally healthy. I want him to be kind of spiritually centered. I want him to be financially healthy and socially like well adapted. Like to me, that was the baseline categories of if my kid does these five things. It's probably not comprehensive. I'm sure people have come up with better models for it, but that was me thinking if my kid's got those five things wickered down, he's probably going to do okay. What is reasonable start? Anything I missed?
No, and I think that's a good start. And I think, you and I are definitely not experts. We're just like two dudes. We're two we've we've got some living under our belts, and we've got and then we're out in the arena of parenting. So I think that's kind of the place that we're coming from for this.
100%. Yeah. If you need a legal disclaimer to tell you that this is not necessarily advice you should take, like, then I'm sorry. You should probably, disconnect your computer from the internet and no longer look at things on the internet. But yeah, we're just two guys, as Teddy Roosevelt described, in the arena, like just trying to make this work. And it's every bit as chaotic as I think any other similar analogy would describe. But yeah, so there's two guys trying to figure it out. So physically, to me, when I thought about physically, what do I want for my kids? Okay, and this is pretty much, I mean, honestly, this is gender neutral, right? The boys, the girls. I'm really looking for about the same things. The flavor's a little different, but I'm looking for is kids who are, healthy, resilient, and have physically active lifestyles and kind of a love of being physically active. Like if I could say that that's my end goal, that's what I want my kids to be physically. That's it. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. Is that more or less in line with what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think, and so that exposes, different, right? So we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about substances that we're putting in our bodies, we're talking about the actual activity that we're doing, whether it's a sport or some other physical endeavor. We're talking about probably some self-defense in there. And yeah, and then just like physical safety when you're doing, dangerous things.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like that's exactly right. That's exactly the same stuff I was thinking. And I thought about it. It's like I got kids that are on the wafier and less active side, and I got like kind of burlier, more physically intense kids. And I wanted to make this pretty neutral. Like I don't necessarily think there's like a right size, and you need to be like 51st percentile on BMI. Like whatever, man. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you and your kids. There's a lot of people that look a lot of different ways to make this work. So I don't want to get tied to any specific course of action. But to me, when I hear the risks, when I think of those things, I'm like, all right, so in risk management, you think of, well, what are my objectives? Okay. What are the things that could keep me from achieving those objectives? And then how likely are they? And how severe are they? And so two immediately popped to mind to me. One was, well, death and crippling injury, right? On the physical level, like I want to keep my kids alive and I don't want them to, like lose legs or limbs or arms or become blind. I don't want them to have any of that happen. And so to me, the number one, I guess, most severe risk, maybe this goes without saying, is, death or serious injury. And so I start thinking, well, let's start talking about mitigation measures. If that's the most serious risk, and it's not, I think, likely, but it's likely enough and severe enough that I'm going to invest in it. So what do? You protect the kids, right? So what are some things we do to kind of protect our kids from death and crippling injury?
Yeah, so my big thing with my son, like when he's doing stuff, I'm like, you can break a leg, you can break an arm, that's fine. Like that's gonna heal in like 2 months. You know, I'm like, you got to wear a freaking helmet. And it's like he doesn't want. He's like doing wheelies, and he's like trying to like hold a wheelie for like 3 seconds, and I'm like, bro, listen, I don't care. You can break whatever on your body, like you can't break your head. Like that's the one thing that you cannot break. So like, I do like draw the line on helmets, and that's hard because it's like there's the cool factor, but that's kind of my line in the sand is like you can recover from almost anything, but like the head injury is gonna like that's gonna cause you some long-term issues.
I love it too, because one, what you said just brings questions to my mind immediately. One, how the hell do we all make it, right? Because I didn't even know what a bike helmet was until I had kids, which is stupid, except that's just the way it was. But like the second thing to me is I listened to that and man, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, well, we'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? Helmets. It's got to be the line in the sand. That's got to be. Oh yeah, I remember what it was. So why is it cool to not wear a helmet? Like, what you say? Like the cool factor. Like, what's cool? It's the same in our community. SF guys. First thing you want to do,
Right.
I want my ball cap. Why am I? Wait. Why? Why? Why is a helmet uncool?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain times where I like love wearing a helmet. I'm like, I like this helmet. It's keeping me safe. But
Well, have you ever
yes,
worked in a tank? Have you ever worked inside a tank? I'm just asking. It's just a
so
random
I've
question.
no, I've been in a tank, and I don't care for it. I've ridden on top of a tank. I care for that even less, but I have not like driven the tank.
Sorry, but everything in the tank, this is why I love helmets in tanks. And I say this, it's like elbow pads too. Everything in the tank is made of like 8-inch thick steel. It gives not at all. And so when you hit it with your head, it hurts so much. I mean, it's just that crippling, like nauseating pain where you're going to throw up that it hurts so bad. You're like, I will wear a helmet forever in a tank. Because it's just so miserable to your head. But I love the idea of riding on top of tanks as though like we're this extra layer of armor to protect the tank from other
Yeah.
things. Like,
So, well,
I
yeah. So
love it.
we did this. We're at Fort Knox. This is like back in 2000 or 2001, and we're like doing. We did a training mission, and we're like, okay, hey, we're gonna extract on top of tanks. We're like, okay, cool. Like that sounds fun, and
They're
so
so
we like.
hazardous.
I mean, it was a nightmare. Like the whole training mission was like a nightmare. It was a mess. We couldn't get a head count, all this stuff. And we get on top of the tanks and we're leaving, and the tanks are going like probably 35, 40 miles an hour down this like dark road.
Are these
And
M1s? Are these like straight up main battle tanks, or are these like
yes,
Bradleys or some kind of?
no, these
So
are
M1s.
M1s. Yeah. And
So they're
so,
scalding hot, right? They're the
so
engine on them is like 1,000 degrees.
yeah, yes. And so, but then we start hitting these branches, and they were not small branches. They were like the size of your forearm, and they're like we're like yelling. No one can hear us. This
Can't hear
tank is
anything in
just
there.
he's just sending it down the road, and we're getting just destroyed by these branches, and like it didn't matter. We like yelled at them at the end. They didn't care. But that was my
Gave no
tank.
shits.
That was
Gave
my
no
tank
shit.
experience. Yeah.
So on behalf of tankers, right? Because I was an infantry guy, but I drove tanks for a little bit. And when you're driving a tank, it like changes your whole perspective. You are unstoppable. Like you can drive through a river. Like you hit a tree. Nah, man, no problem at all. Like a 6-inch oak tree, tank takes that guy right down. Not the least problem. And so the trouble is it really messes up your whole context for what it's like to be outside of the tank and a human. So you're driving along and you got these guys on the outside, which tankers call infantrymen crunchies, by the way. So like you're a crunchy sitting on the outside. And so the crunchies, man, it's hard to remember that they're like real people because what branch? That was nothing. That wasn't a branch. Like, man, that was like a 3-inch redwood you just smashed down. And that guy was between you, the tank and the tree. And so it becomes a little intoxicating driving around Abrams, is all I'm saying. So it's, I sorry that you had to ride on top of one. Like that's so dangerous in so many ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they call
know.
them, the crunchies term comes from a TTP, right? So one of the techniques in a tank platoon is if your platoon is being overrun by infantry who are like trying to climb on top and stuff grenades down the holes, if you just turn the turret to the other tank and just shoot machine gun at the tank, doesn't bother the tank in the least. Like it does 0 damage. And so you're like, it's called scratching one's back. Like, hey, scratch
You're
my back. And that's
you're
when you kill all of the people on the tank.
you're
It's
just
just one of those
you're
charming armyisms.
you're just exfoliating the tank.
Mm-hmm. It's like you got scabies or something. You've got
Yeah.
a light pesticide, a bit like a sort of a infestation. You just take that guy off with a machine gun. But it's tank world is super different, man. It's a very different world. But helmets, yeah. So back to helmets. So yes, when you're on a tank, you should wear a helmet. But no, I see why your line in the sand is helmet based. Am I draconian about helmets? I'm not draconian about helmets, but I do at least make sure. Honestly, I feel for more like a legal reason. Like, hey, if you're out in public and you're doing something, you got to wear a helmet because the reality is, people will get called if you don't have one. So the kids got to wear helmets because I'm concerned somebody would see it and report them. Frankly, I don't know how seriously I necessarily take helmets in like normal neighborhood bicycling, like to me, just personally. But they got to do it anyway
Right.
because that's just what you got to do. But but yeah, I mean, to your point, head damage, brain injury. That's one of the big ones, right? That falls under death and crippling injury. Like, I mean, that's the same reason I make my kids wear seatbelts in the car. It's the same reason um, I don't let my kids, walk around in situations which are totally hazardous. Like, we'd go to California. Okay, so here's a fun story and it's related. I don't know how your kids are, but in situations that are in no way dangerous, my kids will frequently just be in a blind panic about how dangerous everything is. Oh, this is so deadly. But in real life, dangerous situations, very frequently they're like, oh, Dad, what do you know? Like, we'll walk up to this crumbling cliffside on the California shore and you're just like, that's a 30-foot drop. You fall off that, you're going to die. And they're just like running around it all super casual. Like, that sandy cliff will fall apart on a
Wait,
moment's notice. And you're,
what's the
uh,
what's the like the example of them being freaked out about a situation?
So, for example, like my daughter, still scared of bears and bears in the yard. Bears in the yard, like, whoa, if I go outside, what if there's bears? Like, why would there be bears? There's no bears in our yard. I mean, there are, in theory, bears in the area. We live in Florida. You got bears every once in a while. They'll eat the bird feeders, but they're not like rampaging through the neighborhood like a gang of
Right.
hoodlums from a Mad Max movie. I mean, these bears are pretty much, off in the woods doing their own thing. And so it, it's funny to me how often the kids are like that. Like, what do you know, Dad? This isn't dangerous. Like, it is actually quite dangerous. that what you're doing right there is the most dangerous thing you could be doing. But you don't want to, go get the mail because a bear might get you. Like, that's just silly. I mean, do your
Well,
kids have
yeah.
that way? Do your kids have more measured approach?
I mean, I think not necessarily bears. I mean, I think they're yeah. Somewhat they get like freaked out about weird like stuff they'll stuff they'll see online, like some weird monster. That's
Yes,
definitely
yes,
like
that too.
where I'm like,
That too.
you're probably looking at stuff you shouldn't be looking at if you're afraid of like, it the clown coming to get you in the
It the
night.
clown. Oh my gosh. Figure of
Yeah.
my childhood right there though. Like what
Yeah.
were our parents thinking back then? We're like, yeah, just read some Stephen King. It'll be fine. Like, if you never want your kid to take a shower again
Yeah.
voluntarily. Like what why? But
Yeah.
yes, to your point, shouldn't be looking at that stuff, right? But so we could run through 1,000 things that we do that, like, again, seatbelts, helmets. Okay. We're the basic stuff you do to protect your kids from death or crippling injury, because again, you want them to grow up to be healthy, resilient, physically active. But the trick with risk assessment and risk mitigation, and I want to make sure we cover this for each of the categories, is when do you think you're investing too much in the mitigation? So the trick with risk mitigation, right, is to make sure that when you're mitigating a risk, you are not spending so much energy, money, time in the mitigation of that risk that it's actually inhibiting your ability to accomplish the thing you want to accomplish. And so I think it's important to kind of suss out where that line is, because you can always try to bring a risk to zero. You can. You probably can't succeed, but even if you could, is it practical? So where do you think that line is with death and crippling injury, where we are over investing in safety?
Yeah. So, and that's, I think, and probably men and women make different calculations. Like there's different gradations of
And
what
different
you're willing
individuals.
to
Yeah, for sure.
accept. Yeah.
Yes,
And
as many
so,
commanders have told me. Yeah, people
yeah.
see it very differently.
Cause I think you have the risk and then you also have the opportunity. So, and we get back to, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist with flow, and things that are like too easy and too difficult, and you're looking for the sweet spot. So, with the physical risk that we're talking about here, there's too dangerous, and then there's probably too safe, because you want to find a spot in the middle where you are, you feel a little bit of risk, but it's not excessive, and so that probably leads into what types of sports you're gonna be playing.
Well, so let's look at your snorkeling example from this morning. Like, you were swimming with a barracuda. Like, I think in a lot of people's world, that would be like kind of a super high risk behavior that you would need to mitigate. So how do you like safely conduct snorkeling? It sounds a little silly because honestly, I think snorkeling is pretty casual
Yeah.
exercise. But how do you kind of balance that out to like not overinvest in safety and not
Right.
underinvest and just be super super casual about it?
Well,
Careless, I guess would be the word.
and the other wrinkle is like I've shown myself to be allergic to jellyfish. So, and there was jellyfish out in the water. So, I'm like, what do I
Like
do?
anaphylactic shock at jellyfish, like that kind of
Well, not
allergic.
like I've had reactions. I've had like not. I don't know if it would. I mean, I guess it would be like a mild. Like you remember in Arrested Development when the dad is like, I may have committed some mild treason. Like,
Yes,
so like I
yes,
think
yes, a
I
classic
have like
series.
I have like a mild anaphylactic reaction. Like I've gotten shots to deal with it before when I get stung. So but like
How
they're
do
in
you do
there.
that as
So
an NSW guy? You're a SEAL. How can you be allergic to
I mean
jellyfish and be a SEAL?
I I mean you just gotta like stay away from them.
That's so
I'm not like a
impossible. I go to the beach,
I'm
I
not
get stung like once a week.
well, I'm not like an STV guy, so I'm not like totally, I don't know, in there all the time, I guess.
Fair enough,
But
man.
yes. So that would be we're out there, we're snorkeling, there's jellyfish. I mean, I don't know, like I view it as like acceptable risk. I'm just like as my grandmother would say, keeping my wits about me. I'm like looking for the jellyfish, I'm avoiding them. And then just keeping an eye on the barracuda, make sure he swims away.
Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on when he bites you. I just, it's funny, right? I'm not actually concerned about barracudas, but I think to me, what you're describing is a very, very high risk tolerant, low mitigation approach to the activity, right? Well, I've gone into anaphylactic shock from jellyfish before, and there's a big fish that could bite me. I'm basically going to take no mitigation measures. I'm just going to do
Well,
it and keep
yeah.
my wits
So, and
about me like
that's,
that.
yeah. And that's probably
I mean, I'm okay with it, but
why,
experience has probably brought you there, right?
that's probably why my wife and I have had some heated conversations about, about risk with our children. But I'm just like, nah, like it'll
It'll be
buff
fine.
out. Like we'll work it out. Like it's fine.
For what it's worth, I agree, and I tend to err on that side. I think it's a factor of probably experience and adrenal exhaustion. Just the idea that, well, if you ratchet up the risk in someone's life enough, eventually, I don't know that I'm really capable of assessing low levels of risk very accurately anymore. It's like, okay, well, if you mess up somebody's sense of smell badly enough, then they're only going to smell the most extreme smells, right? I could smell something right under my nose, and that's all the small stuff, like sommelier stuff. Nope. Every time I do a wine tasting thing with my wife, I'm like, I taste wine. I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, a hint of whatever, like wine. But I think risk is kind of similar that way, where maybe we just have a hard time, particularly with physical risk, like really getting into that nuanced level. I mean, if your kids were
Yeah.
snorkeling, would it be different?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it would be different. I mean, I would be with them. So it's like, what's going to happen? Like a barracuda is going to bite them. I don't know. I mean, maybe that would be like, but the barracuda is not going to eat them. I mean, like so I guess
Yeah,
they could get a nibble. But like, I think the
just a
danger
little bite,
is,
just a little chunk.
I mean, just some light treason, a
Some
little
scarring to make them
bites.
look cool. A little scarring
Yeah.
to make them look awesome. It's cool,
I mean, I
right?
think, I, I mean, if you take that sort of mindset, then you'll never get in the water. And that's the danger is the danger is like excessively bubble wrapping everything so that we can't even experience the world. And the world is meant to be like participated. It's not like a something out there. Like you're meant to be in it. So yes, let's take some prudent precautions, but let's not be so protective that we can't even engage in the world.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, I think that's a lot of what we talked about in the adversity section, a lot of what we've talked about with just being engaged and being a human is really getting out there into the world. And the truth is that there will be residual risk in any activity that you're doing that has any kind of meaning, it's really hard to get away from any residual risk. There's a residual risk in us sitting here and podcasting, right? There is some risk remaining that something terrible is going to happen. I'll develop a blood clot in my leg and collapse and die right in the middle of this show, right? And so you can't mitigate it to zero. But I think what you're talking about, and this is one of the tricks to risk mitigation that you see people mess up all the time, is you can't lose sight of what you're actually trying to accomplish. The purpose of what you're doing is not to mitigate risk. Risk mitigation is just a thing you do in order to make what you're trying to achieve as successful as possible. But the thing you're trying to achieve is past that. In your case, you're like, I'm going to get out here and snorkel. I'm not going to miss this opportunity. You only get here in this one place with this group of dudes one time. I want to go out there and enjoy that. If you thought of all the things that could go wrong, and you put a lot of effort into mitigating, what you're going to do is talk yourself into just not doing it, because it's always safer to not do the thing. It's just you've kind of lost the point of why you're doing it at all at that point. And I think we mess this up all the time.
Yeah. All right. Listen, we're gonna have to we got to pivot here from physical, because I think we need to hit some of these other ones. So anything else you want to cover on physical?
Well, I don't think we're going to make it through this whole list today, man. I think it's not going to be a one show list. I think we just go and write that off. We're hopeless at sticking on topic, and that's okay. I actually think that was some good stuff. But the only other one, the thing on risk is, or the thing with physical, and I do think it's worth talking, so I don't want to pivot all the way off physical, is obviously we talked about catastrophic stuff, death, crippling injury. That's more like point injury, point problem, point mitigation, right? A thing that's going to happen and you're going to mitigate it. But I think to talk the other side, I captured it by saying unhealthy. My risk is that the kids are going to grow up unhealthy. It's almost the long, lingering version of that same set of risks, right? Because unhealthy will lead to death and some kind of crippling, life-changing sorts of injuries. But the prevention for it is totally different, and the approach to what you're really trying to accomplish is different. So I do think it's worth talking distinctly. But when I say the risk is my kids are going to be unhealthy, that opens a huge Pandora's box of concerns. You're like, well, I mean, to me, nutrition and activity come to mind. But I mean, what comes to your mind when you say, well, I'm worried that my kids will end up unhealthy?
Unhealthy. So
physically unhealthy, because that gets super broad.
Yeah. So, I mean, you open the door of tobacco, vaping, alcohol, drugs. There's all these high risk behaviors that kids will engage in as part of their socialization and kind of exploring the world. They're just kind of exploring the space and seeing what sharp edges they encounter. So, I mean, those would be some of the other ones. But yeah, nutrition is a huge one today with, the amount of processed foods that Americans consume, trying to get them to eat more.
The standard American diet. Love it.
Right.
It's such a great acronym.
So, I mean, that's probably the constant, because they're kids, they're going to eat garbage, sometimes, but trying to get in enough of salads, vegetables, lean protein, trying to get them, fed at least so they have an idea of what to eat when they get older.
Yeah, that's the hope. On the nutrition side, that's how we try to mitigate the risk that they will develop rotten eating habits and become unhealthy. Is we try to just stack the deck at home with as much stuff so they're like, I need a snack. Great. Well, there's only so many snacks, and you're going to grab a snack that's different. Or that's decent. Obviously we all have our own kind of zone for what we think is acceptable. I don't think we're over the top with it. And when you talk about how you can over mitigate, I have seen people who I think struggle with trying to control every single intake into their kid's diet. I think you could put a lot of effort into that, a whole lot of effort. And the trouble is that dietary science is complicated enough that I don't actually know all the right answers. And I think you can really struggle with that. So I try to find the sweet spot between, well, what can I put that's relatively easy, relatively healthy, pretty solid, so that they'll have food that's, good going into them. And that's our attempt to find that balance. But I think people approach it differently.
Yeah. And like you said, there's no, there are so many different schools of thought on it, right? Carnivore, this, that, the other, you're going to be vegetarian, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. So, at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
just trying to instill the fundamentals of eating around the edges of the grocery store. I think you're going to stay out of and a lot of this, I should say, a lot of this risk talk, is that like via negativa, right? Like the negative path. So it's understanding, okay, here's all the amount of ways that you can get in trouble in whatever domain. And then like, hey, like what is I think Dwight in The Office, he's like, you know, I find out what sucks and then I don't do that thing. It's like it's kind of like that. Like it's like we okay, here's
Yeah.
you can get into trouble doing X, Y, and Z. Like let's probably steer away from those things.
But I mean, you're right. And in theory, that kind of generational wisdom or whatever we're bringing as parents to the table for the kids is supposed to be that, right? All right, man, we've found a lot of things that suck, to paraphrase Dwight. And so we are going to do the things that do not suck. And we're going to try and instill those things in you. Like ideally over the generations, you would think that that would lead to kind of a refining where you're like, well, we'll move away from all these things that suck and slowly we'll get better. Unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a moving target. And so a lot of the things that we think suck, like from when I was a kid, margarine was definitely held up as the thing you should put on your bread because butter is bad. And now I'm pretty sure we feel exactly
Yeah.
the opposite. Like there's no reason to ever put margarine in your body. You should use butter. Although I think people would still disagree with me on that. So it's tough. It's
No, I
tough
mean,
to
and that's
refine wisdom when wisdom's changing.
no, that's a great idea. But like, I think there are, I mean, the classic, the cliches are like, eat what somebody ate 100 years ago. Like I think if we tried to just keep that in mind, like, okay, what have people eaten for thousands of years? It's like, could you grow in your garden? What could what livestock did you have? What fruits and vegetables, or did you, fish and you caught something? So like those are pretty much like your high percentage options. And then you start to look at like all the, the processed foods. It's like, that's where, um, we may get into trouble.
So it's funny, right? I think a lot of people would disagree with what you just said. I actually agree. I think for the most part that a traditional foods diet is probably the safe play. I mean, it feels like we're developed to eat that, but I mean, the entire vegan movement is built around the idea that that's flawed, right? For whatever reason. I actually don't know all
Well,
of the
I mean, I
backstory
think
to why, but I mean,
they would eat fruits and vegetables.
well, I mean, you're not going to avoid everything we ate 100 years ago, but I mean, you're cutting out a pretty huge swath if you're cutting out meat, dairy, eggs, and fish. I mean, you can't stay away from processed food at that point, I believe. I mean, I'm not a vegan, but I believe you have to incorporate some kind of processed protein to live.
Well,
But I could be wrong on
yeah,
that.
yeah, like the tofu, the like. I mean, I guess yes,
Like whey.
edamame.
I mean, whey protein, or I guess not whey protein, pea protein, probably. Pea protein
Yeah,
is but I don't think you can do it otherwise. But I could be wrong. So I guess my point is that even that fairly simple, like, well, just look what people ate 100, 200 years ago, avoid processed food. That's basically our approach. We do the same thing. That is how we try to mitigate, I guess, unhealthy. Let's say to the 80% standard, because, sometimes the kid gets pizza when it's date night, like, hey, man, we're in pizza. You guys get pizza. It's fine. We're not draconian about it. But I think we try to that 80% standard to do what you're describing. But I do think folks would disagree. But that's part of the challenge of nutrition. And that's honestly, in the end, why part of risk mitigation is applying your own principles to it. And then what did we talk about like a lot of episodes ago? Being accountable for the consequences of your actions, right? Like, hey,
right.
man, you're
Yeah,
going to make your choices. You're going to roll with it. And then it's you. You were the canopy commander. You're the one
yeah.
that made the choices. And in 50 years, we'll all know who died of cancer and who didn't. And it'll probably be me because I'm a retired SF guy and we don't tend to live that long. But just count down the days, man. Every day is a blessing. Dark humor, right? It's like food. Not everybody gets it. Isn't that the meme? Um, all right. Have we covered mental or physical enough? So, sports though. The last thing we should talk about with physical, because this is related to, it's like the other piece of nutrition. So to me, nutrition and physical activity are probably the two cornerstones of a healthy physical lifestyle once you take death and dismemberment and like the kind of critical events off the table. So sports, to me, this bridges into social, but to me, sports or whatever you want to call building a healthily active lifestyle is the other main way that I try to mitigate unhealthy lifestyle in my kids. And I don't know. I mean, do you push your kids to play sports? Do you make them?
I mean, I think we've encouraged them to play sports, and they've explored different ones. And I think the two oldest, definitely they each play a sport now. Um, and so like it's nothing that we necessarily like force them to do, but we're just kind of like, hey, we want you to do this. And, as you said, there's a lot of social gains in playing a sport. But yeah, the physical, I think you're getting, you're moving your body, right? So you're getting that. You're struggling with adversity. You're struggling with like the limits you think you have on yourself. You're you're measuring yourself against previous versions of yourself. You're trying to improve and get better. So all in all, I think it's really like one of the best things we can have kids do physically to develop in a healthy way.
I agree. I agree. It's hard. One, it's sometimes hard to get kids to do things they don't want to do, right? So our general, we have a lot of the I want to do a thing, and then when we start doing the thing, it gets hard, and I no longer want to do the thing. That's obviously a very common kid behavior. I think one of the ways we try to mitigate that is say, like, hey, if you start the season, you want to play the season. Like you can stop next season, but you're going to finish this one. That's our TTP for making sure that kids, develop that follow through. And a lot of times,
What's a TTP?
TTP, oh man, it is impossible to get away from jargon. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? So TTPs, like if you were looking at like if you had a little notebook by your bed and you wrote down like the ways that you do things, like, well, when I go to the grocery store, I get my processed foods first, and then I go get my meat, and then I get my dairy, and then I get my produce on the way out, so it's on top, and then I put the freezer stuff on the side. Like, if let's say you had a system for doing that, I don't. I'm a terrible shopper. My wife has an amazing system, but if I did, that would be my TTP for shopping. That would be my tactic, technique, and procedure for shopping. The way that I do that, that's the best way I can describe a TTP. But our parenting TTP for sports is, well, if you start, you're going to finish the season, and after you finish the season, one, in I think 100% of cases, the kid actually just liked it and wanted to continue the next season. But two, if you don't want to play the next season, that's fine. No harm, no foul, but you're going to finish. And then you have to make it to every practice. We don't ever miss practices. We're pretty draconian about, unless you have like a fever or you are bleeding out of some orifice, you're going to practice and you're just going to suck through it. It's fine. But that's our TTP. I don't know. Your kids back out of stuff? Like my kids back out of stuff, or try to back out of stuff with some regularity.
So yeah, they definitely will try here and there. I think with the oldest, no, I think she's done what she's started. My son is a little more challenging, but yeah, and the same thing with practices. Like, I mean, it's really that you're absolutely right, and like they don't understand the importance of it, and they're not going to probably understand it until they're a little bit older. But yes, and then instilling the discipline of going to practice, I think, is important.
That's what we try to do, right? But there's a too much side of that too. So here's a funny one. I've read a couple of articles on it, and I've seen it firsthand with kids in like the 12 to 14-year-old age having ACL tears and like surgeries to repair major joint and overuse injuries. I look at that, and I'm not saying what anybody does is wrong, right? Because I don't know, man. I don't know what the right answer is. But I look at the way sometimes kids sports gets, and I think, are we going too far with it? Are we trying to put too much activity and too much kind of professional level performance at too young an age, and actually we're kind of missing the mark a little bit? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like a whole. I could go on a diatribe about the kids sporting industry, but I think when we were kids, it was not as developed.
Travel X.
Yeah, so when we were kids, like, it was not super developed, and I think what happened over time was like people realized, like the industry that's grown up around weddings. It's like this $1 billion everything, wedding. Like, kids sports is like, hey, like people will dump trucks full of money at this, thing, because kids or parents look at it as like, this ticket to college. And so you have kids specializing earlier and earlier and earlier, not just playing a sport, but playing a very specific position. And, we've seen, there's a guy that wrote a book called Range, about, being a generalist, and how people like, Roger Federer, like, played other sports before, like, as they were developing, they didn't just specialize, and how having a generalist range is better for kids. But yes, to your point, like, people are putting their kids in these very intense things at a younger and younger age, which is leading to the injuries. And so how I like to visualize things in like triangles and trinities. So on the physical level,
Tridents.
oh yeah, yes, trident. But on the physical level, like I like to look at the relationship between exercise, nutrition, and then rest. And so like if you don't, and that that's sleeping, and then that's also like rest days and not overusing your body. So yeah, with
And
some
rest
of these kids,
seasons. Rest
yes,
seasons. It's like summer.
yes, and so like to your point, like some of these kids are playing like multiple sports. They're going to like a couple practices a day. Like there's a point where you have to look at that and say we've got some diminishing returns here.
It, I feel like that's true. I don't know, right? And none of us will really know the answer to that for another generation because you won't often see the kind of outputs of these. You won't see necessarily the effects of some of the suspected causes until a long time from now, right? I mean, you just won't know. We won't know whether our nutritional information was correct. We're not going to know if our approach to sports is correct. But I do share this sense with you that if my 10-year-old goes to tryouts to play a sport and doesn't make the team because, well, hey man, you're 5 years behind the curve. You don't have the skills that a 10-year-old needs to play this sport, then I do have the sense that we're kind of missing the mark on what youth sports are actually about. Like I don't know. That's
No,
my gut.
and I like so, and that's what like really made me salty is my daughter was trying to play a sport and because she wasn't on private teams and she wasn't getting private coaching, like she wasn't making, the cut. And, I don't know what the coaches are dealing with, right? Like I don't know what constraints the coaches have in terms of like number of people that
They're
can
just
play. But
they're often
like
volunteers too. Like I'm super like on the coach's side.
yeah,
Like,
and
man,
and
I
so
get it.
it's like it's easy to just bitch and moan as a parent, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
what I see is if you don't get private coaching and you're on a private team, you're going to be behind the power curve for like the public teams, which to me, like just like you said, like I view sports as like, hey man, you're not going to get a freaking D1 scholarship here. You're going to learn character. You're going to learn sportsmanship and like being a team player. Like that's really what we're here doing. But like it's that emphasis on like performance and like winning, I think is a problem that, is going to manifest later in life.
I think you're right. And it's funny because we're coming from the places of two people. Like I was not a particularly athletic kid, but we're coming from two people who have been professionally athletic for our entire lives. Like I obviously put some value in being physically fit. I mean, we've had to be physically fit for the last at least 20 to 25 years and really focus on that. And so 100% see the value of it. But it does blow my mind when I see exactly what you're describing. Like, well, you didn't make the team, man. You didn't make the team. And so that means you can't play. Like, well, that means you can't practice. So if you can't even practice, much less play the game, then how are you ever getting good? And like, but the funny thing to me about the whole system is that in the end, the pyramid of like sports, youth sports to middle school to high school to college to professional sports, the top of it hasn't really changed. There's still only so many people playing pro sports. And I don't think that no matter how much the bulk of people invest in youth sports in terms of like time, equipment, number of teams, number of practices, you're still not playing it professionally. And so at some point, I'm like, well, where is the point of diminishing returns when you're getting the maximum kind of health, character, social value of the sport? Where is that point of diminishing returns when anything past that is really investment in something that's not going anywhere and may even be detrimental? Like I see kids who have zero time to do anything except go from school to practice to this, to this, to this. And you're like, well, when are you learning how to kind of manage your life with how to function as an individual? And I don't want to sound judgy on this, man, because we're all just taking a swing and we're all doing the best we can. So I absolutely don't. But you look and you wonder, like, how's that going to play out? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah. And this is obviously bleeding into other, the other types of risk, but yeah, like the
They're all connected, man. That's the trouble.
yes, like the process of like, getting yourself marketable for college is just that has gone off the deep end to where it's like you have to have internships and this, that, and the other.
College
But
has gone off the deep end, man. College has gone off the deep
yeah.
end.
So let me let me just stay away from that right now. So I think,
That's
yeah,
another trail, right?
and I think probably if you talk to like an athletic director at a school, they'll say, well, we have club teams, we have intramural teams that you can play that aren't as competitive, and you can get like the camaraderie and like the, motor skills, from the sport. But I just question yeah, like you said, you and I have been through like ruthless selection processes, like just brutal, ruthless selection process. So we're not saying like that's a bad thing in us particular
Contrary.
domains, but like when we're talking about developing children, like the like winning should not be like the main metric of like these sports teams.
No, I agree, man. I agree. And there's a sweet spot. And one, again, I'm totally sympathetic to those volunteer coaches who are out there like doing their best to balance getting bitched at by parents and playing kids. Man, that is a thankless job, and God love those people for what they do. But it, you do I try to walk that line between like, well, I don't love the everybody gets a trophy mentality where everybody wins and it doesn't matter who wins and let's all just play. Like, I'm not in love with that. I don't mind a little competition, but I guess to me, the sweet spot is everybody shows up to practice. Everybody works hard. The best people play. You might ride the
Yes.
bench because you're not that good or because you didn't work that hard. I'm okay with my kids
Yeah.
sitting out the game because, hey man, you're just not there. You're not the performer. But I do like the investment in the team, the ability to just practice, to get out there and take swings and to learn. And then, hey, maybe you'll get your shot. And when you get your shot in the game, maybe you'll perform and you'll kind of move up. Or maybe you won't and you'll learn how to lose. That's okay too. I don't need everybody to be a winner, but it does feel that if everybody can't even play or
Yeah.
that playing is such an investment that it's actually consuming every other moment of your free time, that we just miss the mark a little bit to me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great position between everybody gets a trophy and just total like ruthless selection, because like what ends up happening is then it's like, well, you have to have the means to get private coaching and private teams to like
Which comes
to
with a
like
lot of expense often, right?
and
I mean, you're like,
it's
well,
like,
that you got to pay to
yeah.
play. You're like, well,
Yeah, so I think you hit on like my frustration is like, yeah, like let them do practices and ride the bench like until they prove that, they deserve a spot. Like, but don't like if you're like, well, sorry, like you can't even practice. Like, and again, like I don't know what the numbers that these teams are dealing with in terms of like the logistics of moving, going to games on buses, this, that, and the other. But like, it just seems like we've lost something, and I don't think we're kind of out there for thinking that.
no, it feels like some piece of perspective has been lost there to me. I mean, again, the communities we came from, the selection process was ruthless because, life and death is what's on the line, right? You have to produce a person of this caliber because if you're going to send that person with three of his friends into a situation where there's no one around to help and it's only those four people relying on one another to live or die, then everyone needs to know that everybody's at that level. But youth sports to me is about, setting the conditions for those kids to become potentially those sorts of people in those encounters in the future. It's those people learning the skills in an environment when they can learn this and nobody's going to live and or I guess everybody's going to live and nobody's going to die. That's where you really form that stuff. That's the hammer beating on the little piece of iron to try and shape it into something solid in the future. You don't necessarily need to test it to that level then. And we shouldn't pretend that it's that important. I mean, you got to put some pressure on the kids, but yeah, I mean, we're just summing up what we already said. I think we're losing a little bit of perspective on what this is all about and what we're really trying to do. But it becomes a rat race and it's hard to get away from. Like as a parent, you feel the pressure to do these things. Like, well, do you not love your kids? Are you not willing to drive your kids across the country or fly your kids across country to play the sport? Why not? Don't you love your children? Don't you want what's best for them? And you get into this trap. You're like, well, yeah, I think I do, but I don't think that that's maybe the best approach. I don't know. It's difficult, man. There's a lot of pressure there, especially if the social circle you're in supports it and thinks that it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like the keeping up with the Joneses aspect to it, and yeah, the club teams and like going away and hotel rooms for like away tournaments. It gets expensive very quickly. Not to mention
Matching
all the
workout gear, matching
yeah
digital headphone or what do they call them? Matching headphones to like the team colors. Like, man, some of my friends have told me horror stories of the amount of just time and expense. I mean, I was talking to a buddy last weekend who's like laying in a hotel room right now. Like, what are you doing? He's like, well, got a travel volleyball game tonight. So my wife is out on another thing with another kid. I'm here with this kid doing this event. And you're like, so you've split the family up to go to two different things, both of which encompass your entire weekend. I, I, it just feels like something's wrong with that picture. I mean, again, hey man, everybody's doing their best. I'm not faulting anybody, but I I wouldn't do that, and I don't think I'm way off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everybody's going to make their own, peace with that. And I think it's
Could be totally wrong, right? 100%, we could be wrong on this. Dead wrong.
yeah. I definitely like my wife and I are definitely on the like no negative. Like we're not filling our weekends with that stuff. But listen, I respect, other people are going to come to a different conclusion on that. All right. So what else do we want to talk about with physical risk?
I think honestly, at this point, we've accepted that this is the only criteria we're going to cover today. We have only we got a few minutes left before we round out the hour. I'm okay with taking it slow on these because I think it kind of spells it out it spells it out a little bit and brings it to life. Um, so I don't know. I think to me that's physical risk in a nutshell. You're taking the long term impacts of what can make your kid, unhealthy, fail to be resilient or inactive, sedentary lifestyle. Like those are the kind of concerns I have. So really between kind of your steady state, your kind of drumbeat stuff like nutrition, activity level, sports, those are the things that are going to kind of baseline, get them ready for that. And then you're going to also work to mitigate the really crippling point risks like death in car wreck, skull cracked because popping a wheelie and fell off bike backwards, um, you know, kidnapped and murdered, like these sorts of things. You're going to mitigate those. So the trick, and I think we talked this, but the trick to me is really finding that balanced approach to saying, all right, how much are you willing to invest against something? And the question then becomes, well, how likely is it and how severe is it? If it is severe and likely, really there's no upper limit to what you'd want to invest. If you lived in a place where there were lions in your yard, you would take lions very seriously, right? Like if you lived in the African plains, like, man, lions are a serious problem here. We're going to take them seriously. If you were mitigating against lions living in my neighborhood, I would argue you were probably over allocating resources because the likelihood is very low. But that's the sweet spot, right? That's really what we're talking about is what is the sweet spot?
Yeah. Yeah, that sums it up nicely.
Okay. Well, maybe that's it, man. It sounds like you got some heavy machinery kicking on in the background there.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe we
apologize. I don't know how if that's going to show up. That is I think we're getting ready to get underway.
underway. That's amazing. Master and
Uh
Commander Adam.
yes.
That's amazing. Gosh, so much power, so much authority. Like Russell
Yeah,
Crowe.
I wouldn't I wouldn't go that far, but yes. It's a good time.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting over physical risk with you. I look forward to kind of continuing our discussion on applying risk mitigation to parenting to kind of bring it to life and to really just hash out between us how we think about raising kids. Because honestly, we do a lot of things similar, but there's areas I think we're totally dissimilar on, and I love picking those things apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, have a good week, man. Enjoy it. Take care.
You too, brother.